Hello, everybody, and welcome to That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. I am Bill Yankovi, and this is going to be an interesting week because going to be previewing this Sunday's Backlash show because I refuse to call it WrestleMania Backlash. It just doesn't make any freaking sense. Plus, I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Nick Gage Dark Side of the Ring and Booker T biography, and I'll be honest, they're both actually going to be positive reviews, and I'm going to be getting into some wrestling news as well. So, to start off this week, this is kind of an interesting and cool announcement that High Spots made this past weekend, and if you haven't heard the news, want to mark this down. June the 1st, Paul Heyman will be doing a very rare autograph signing with High Spots. If you go to highspotsauctions.com, they right now have a lot of items that you can pre-order to get autographed by Paul Heyman. The promo pictures range really from $40 to $100, and I want to point out the ones that are over $40 are dual signed. There's a dual signed Paul Heyman New Jack 8x10 that's $80. There is a dual signed Paul Heyman Jim Ross promo for $100. And then, there are other pictures when he was Paul Heyman, when he's Paul Heyman, Paul E. Dangerously, and those are going for $40. Really good items there. They also are selling large items. They're selling 2 Rob Schamberger paintings of Paul Heyman. The 11x14 is going for $60, and the 18x24 is going for $75. Also, they have, and this is kind of pretty cool, a signed Paul E. Dangerously Motorola prop phone for $75. And then they also have a dual signed Paul E. Dangerously Paul Heyman 11x17 poster, which is going for $109. They also are selling turnbuckle pads at $109. And then they have some add-ons that I want to mention. Mail-ins are $60. Personalizations are $60. And the VIP package, which I will read in a minute, $500. So this is limited to 12 people. And this is what you get in the VIP package. You get a signed replica cell phone, a signed turnbuckle pad, the signed 11x17 poster with the combo of Paul E. Dangerously Paul Heyman, a 2-minute meet and greet with Paul in front of the entire Facebook audience, and a video will be mailed to the VIP afterwards as a digital file. All of that for $500. This is apparently a very rare occasion that Paul Heyman does autographs. So if you're an ECW fan, and I know there are a lot of ECW fans, and if you're a Paul Heyman fan or a Paul E. Dangerously fan, you might want to get on this real soon because they're going to be taking this down, I believe, this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And after that, you're going to be taking your chances on, getting some other stuff signed by Paul Heyman, a.k.a. Paul E. Dangerously. But that's really cool news that Paul Heyman is doing an autograph session, a virtual autograph session, on June the 1st for High Spots. Alright, let's get to some other news. LA Park, one half of the current Major League Wrestling Tag Team Champions, is currently battling pneumonia. His son's confirmed in a recent video that he is currently recovering at home and is in stable condition. Park was scheduled to wrestle tomorrow, as a matter of fact, in a three-way match against Blue Demon Jr. and Psycho Clown at a Mexican independent show, but has understandably withdrawn from the show. Replacing LA Park for that match is Pentagon Jr. El Penta Zero Mio will be taking the place of LA Park in that three-way match in Mexico this weekend. So, best of, to LA Park. Hope he gets better, recovers, and we can get him back in the ring real soon. Another piece of news, and this is news that's been brought up the last day or two, and I want to talk about this because depending on how you read this, the story may be true, may not be true. Bray Wyatt, as we know, has not been on television since the Raw after WrestleMania. And, of course, there was that time where he was off TV for 2 months, during the Randy Orton feud. And there were reports that came out that the reason why he was off TV and is now off TV is these were Bray's words, he is not mentally there. Obviously, the death of Brody Lee, Luke Harper, towards the end of last year is playing a big factor in Bray Wyatt's life right now, and I can't really blame the guy. I mean, you lose one of your closest friends in life, and something sad like this happens, and it takes people a long time to get over this, and I'm glad WWE is giving Bray this opportunity to mentally get himself back to 100%. Hopefully, he gets all the time he needs to get himself better, and we'll see him again in the very near future on television. But right now, I'm just glad to know that Bray is in a position right now where he's not on television, he's not at the Thunderdome, and he is getting the mental rest that he needs, because we all deal with this, and at some point we do need to have a mental break, and that's what Bray Wyatt is going through right now. The big story this week in the world of professional wrestling is the news that AEW and WWE are going to be back on the road. Well, at least AEW will be going back on the road. AEW announced this week that they have 3 shows lined up for the month of July. The first one will be on July the 7th. That is going to be their first show outside of Daly's Place in Jacksonville. It will be at the James L. Knight Center. After that, July the 14th, they will be in the Austin metropolitan area at the HEB Center. And on July 21st, they will go to Garland, Texas, which is the Dallas area, to the Curtis Culwell Center for to wrap up, as of right now, what we know. Tickets go on sale today, or they have been on sale since earlier today. So this is going to be very, very interesting to see what they do. Meanwhile, with WWE, Dave Meltzer reported in the newest Observer newsletter this week that WWE is exploring a return to touring in a few months. Andrew Zarian of Matmen was the first to report this, that Friday, July 16th's SmackDown would be the first such show with fans. He later specified the message he received was fans back July 16th through the 19th. So one of those 4 days, it seems, could be the day that WWE gets fans back. What is unknown is whether the first show will be at the Thunderdome in Tampa, Florida at the Yuengling Center or in another city completely. It's also unknown if house shows are still in the plan for the future, and if so, how that schedule will change from past years. I will say this. I like that both companies are going to attempt to do or to be back on the road. I think the summertime is a pretty good time to do that, and we know where AEW is going. We know they're going to go to Miami, and then they're going to go to 2 shows in Texas. With WWE, it hasn't really been set in stone yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if maybe they go the same route that AEW is doing, which is we'll stay in Florida and then we'll go to Texas as well to do shows. So it'll be interesting to see how this lines up. I really hope that when we get to July that we're near the end and that the fans will be able to come back. Because, there are some events that need fans. WrestleMania was a perfect example, and it really showed this year. And, it's amazing what fans can do at a show and how it could change a show entirely. So, going to be pretty interesting to see how they do this and if it is pulled off successfully. We'll just have to wait and see. I want to talk about also, and this, for some reason, I don't get this. The talk about the Blood and Guts match from last week and WWE's reaction and saying how that match set the business back 30 years. That's the line that has been put out there this week. Obviously we won't know who the people are that said this, and they are entitled to their right to say that. But I think saying that match set professional wrestling back 30 years is a bit of a stretch. I really think that's a bit of a stretch. Hell, some of the stuff that WWE's put on television lately could set the business back 30 years. How about that? Obviously, with Blood and Guts, not everyone is going to like it. I talked about the match last week, and I rather enjoyed the match. And I think it's, just people at WWE saying stuff because they're WWE. That's how I really look at it. And I wouldn't really, honestly, take it as anything else except, hey, it's WWE. They're going to say that, so just let them say it, really. Because at the end of the day, the people that know how the match was and the people that liked it were the wrestlers and the fans that watched it. That's how I look at it. Now, speaking of Blood and Guts, Chris Jericho did suffer a dislocated left elbow courtesy of the landing after the Blood and Guts match. He would be out for 4 to 6 weeks. However, because, if you did not see Dynamite this week, the Inner Circle challenged the Pinnacle to a rematch, in which the Pinnacle agreed, but they made it a Stampede Stadium match. So it's going to be interesting to see how Jericho can go around the dislocated elbow in a big-time match on a big pay-per-view. And, Jericho has been a wrestler for so long, 30-plus years. And he's one of the guys that I would put on a very short list of people who don't get hurt. Like they don't get a serious injury all the time. Like Bret Hart is another person. Now, like if you take a break and do something else, okay, that's one thing. Like Jericho has done from time to time. But this is, to the best of my knowledge, the first real serious injury Chris Jericho's ever had in his 30-year career. Unless somebody else, unless I'm forgetting something, and I don't think I am, because Jericho is a very well-conditioned wrestler. Maybe not, in the stomach, but as far as like the arms and the legs and the knees, he just has never had that kind of a problem before. So it'll be interesting to see how they how they do this come the 30th of May, and I'll talk about it in 2 weeks. Previewing the Double or Nothing show, which really, the card is looking like a very good card right now, with the 3-way main event, which looks really good. There are some good matches they've got lined up for the 30th of May, and like I said, I will talk about it in 2 weeks to preview the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. So this week was the latest installment of A&E Biography on Booker T, and God, this was a hell of a lot better than the Macho Man documentary. I was really invested into the Booker T documentary. Very fascinating story, very well produced, very well done. If I had to rank this, I'd put it only behind the Roddy Piper documentary as the best that, they've done up to this point. And this week is going to be the Shawn Michaels documentary. So that'll be interesting to see how the Shawn Michaels documentary comes out. But no, I really enjoyed the Booker T documentary. Got to meet, members of his family that we never met, his sisters, basically. Stevie Ray, we found out about the whole, when he got arrested, and just a really rough life, and he ended up being a success story, and he's earned everything he has ever gotten in this business, and he's one of the good guys. He is truly one of the good guys in professional wrestling. Now, Thursday was the newest edition of Dark Side of the Ring, which was about Nick Gage and his career and his life too. And man, that was well done also. And one of the things that I remember, watching the documentary was when they talked about the Tournament of Death incident, where he had his arm, underneath the arm cut open after he went through, fluorescent lights, and it was like his arteries were coming out. And what I remember the most from that is not the incident that happened, because, in wrestling you're going to have accidents, and that was an accident. But what I remember was somebody put this video up on YouTube. This was years ago. So this was Tournament of Death 8. So this would have been 2009, I want to say, is the timeline. So, here's Nick Gage lying on the ground. And he's got blood coming out of his arm, or underneath his arm. And the nurse is trying to help him, and at one point, and I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this as long as I live. Like, the people are talking to Nick Gage, and Nick Gage is like, I'm cutting a promo. I'm going to cut a promo. I'm going to cut a effing promo right here. And the nurse is like, no, you're not cutting a promo. And then his reply is like, I'm cutting an effing promo, bitch. And he does a promo while lying on the ground with blood coming out of his body. And then, because it was the final match of the tournament. I do remember that. I do remember it was the final match of the tournament. It was on, it was on the documentary, but for those who didn't see it, he wrestled Thumbtack Jack in I think it was a 200 fluorescent light tubes death match. And he goes into the ropes, and, like I said, he cut basically his under the arm was where he got cut, and the blood was coming out, and he has on the Chicago Bulls jersey. It's a white Bulls jersey, Michael Jordan on the back, and he eventually is flown to the hospital. Now, what I didn't know, and I found this out watching the documentary, is on the flight to the hospital, Nick Gage was dead. The man was clinically dead for 7 minutes. I'd never heard that until watching that documentary, and I'm like, oh my God, this dude, he didn't cheat death. There's a difference. There's a difference between someone saying, oh, this man cheated death, and maybe saying, oh, he's very thankful to be alive, which, he should be, because all that blood that was lost. Like, if you want to talk about someone cheating death, and I'll use a musical individual here, Phil Anselmo, the lead singer of Pantera, when he overdosed on heroin, and when he was brought back from, it talked about it on Behind the Music, and the nurse is like, welcome back to death. Welcome back to life. You overdosed on heroin. That's one of the memorable lines from that Behind the Music episode. By the way, aren't they supposed to bring that back on Paramount Plus? Because I look up Behind the Music, and there's only 2 episodes they have up, Madonna and Jennifer Lopez. I don't want to watch Madonna or Jennifer Lopez Behind the Music. I want to see some of the other stuff. Like, I want to see the Quiet Riot Behind the Music episode. I heard that one got censored a lot, but that's neither here nor there. But no, with the Nick Gage Dark Side of the Ring, it was very good. And Nick Gage comes off as a very likable person. He has a passion for professional wrestling, has a passion for the sport. And, whether you agree or disagree with some of the things he does and some of the things he says, he's a guy that believes in professional wrestling. He loves professional wrestling, and he loves deathmatch wrestling. And Fro and I, we had this talk a long time ago, talking about deathmatch wrestling. And my thought with deathmatch wrestling is, it's okay to watch deathmatch wrestling if the consumption is every once in a while. Let's say you have a favorite place to go eat. I'll pick, I'm trying to think of a restaurant here that's still in business. Applebee's. Okay, I'll do Applebee's. Let's say Applebee's is your favorite place. And you go every once in a while, and you really like the food. The food is great. And, that's maybe, how some wrestling fans are with deathmatch wrestling. It's like, okay, I can handle this every once in a while. But then there's a point where, and again, I'll use Applebee's as an example, you go all the time, you get the same thing all the time, and to most people, it kind of gets stale, it's kind of dull, it's kind of boring, but to you, it's like, this is the greatest thing in the world, and if anyone talks bad about it, I'm going to beat you up. So there's really, that's how deathmatch wrestling is, I think, is A, you don't like it at all, which, no problem. B, you like it to a certain quantity. Like if you do like one death match every so often, it's okay. Or if you watch one tournament, every so often, it's okay. And then there are those who just eat it up, consume it, live it, breathe it. And there are those people who think of deathmatch wrestling like that. And not saying that there's anything wrong with that, because there isn't. But you gotta have a healthy obsession, I think, with something like deathmatch wrestling. So, but that's how I look at deathmatch wrestling. I like it, but I wouldn't over-consume it. I wouldn't have too much deathmatch wrestling. Alright, and the next episode of Dark Side of the Ring, that's going to be a very interesting one, is Collision in Korea. That's the infamous show, 2-day show in North Korea, which the headliner was Ric Flair and Antonio Inoki, and oh my goodness, I can't wait to watch that episode. There's going to be new stuff, I bet, to hear out of that, because it's one of those infamous shows that gets talked about. Okay, so let's talk about, speaking of infamous, Backlash. Because, like I said, I refuse to call it WrestleMania Backlash. It just sounds dumb. Maybe it is dumb. Think about it. So, I'm going to go through each match, and I'm going to give a prediction as to who will win these matches at Backlash. And, who knows? Maybe another match or two gets added by the time after this show airs and you guys are listening to it. So I'm going to start with, as of right now, the only match that is not a title match. Damian Priest against The Miz in a lumberjack match. I don't know. This one seems kind of written on the wall on this one. I think Damian Priest is going to win this because there seems to be trouble with Morrison and Miz. So I would think Damian Priest is going to get the win over The Miz. SmackDown Tag Team titles are going to be defended. Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode will defend the titles against Rey and Dominic Mysterio. And I do think we will have new tag team champions. I believe Rey and Dominic Mysterio will beat Roode and Ziggler to win the SmackDown Tag Team titles. It just seems kind of set up that way. Universal Championship will be on the line. Roman Reigns will defend against Cesaro. Look, it's Roman Reigns. He's had the best run of his career so far with pay-per-view matches, and it's going to keep going. I expect this match with Cesaro to be a terrific match, maybe the show-stealing match. But I do see Roman Reigns retaining the Universal Championship. Triple threat match for the Raw Women's title. Rhea Ripley will defend against Asuka and Charlotte Flair. I'm just going to say the old saying, you never bet against Charlotte Flair. I think Charlotte Flair's going to win the Raw Women's title, and it's going to make a lot of people even more mad than it already is right now. SmackDown Women's title will be on the line. Bianca Belair will defend against Bayley. This one's kind of an easy one, I think. Bianca Belair will retain the SmackDown Women's title. And the final match, a triple threat match. Look at that, 2 triple threat matches on the same pay-per-view. This one is for the WWE Championship. Bobby Lashley will defend against Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman. This could be an interesting match. Could be. I mean, Lashley and McIntyre at WrestleMania was a lot better than I think a lot of people expected it to be. Maybe we get the same thing here at Backlash. But I see Bobby Lashley retaining the WWE Championship on that one. And we'll find out this Sunday as Backlash takes place on Peacock. They'll have a kickoff show. Probably 6 o'clock is going to be the time, with the main show starting at 7. Well, that will do it for the show this week. I know it's kind of a short show, but, there really wasn't that much to talk about this week in the world of professional wrestling, which, you know what? It's alright. It's okay to do that sometimes. Have a short show, and that means there's going to be bigger things coming up. So, get into the plugs. If you guys have any questions or comments, send an email, wrestlingman@thatwrestlingshow.com. Follow the show on Twitter, WrestlingShow11. You can follow the show on Instagram, That Wrestling Show. Join our Facebook group. It is That Wrestling Show fan group. You type that in the search bar on Facebook, add yourself, and boom, you are in the group. And if you can't find it, it's okay. I put the link in the description of each and every episode. And check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/That Wrestling Show, where we have really, I think, the most affordable tiers in all of Patreon. $1 tier, $2 tier, and the highest is $3. And for $3, you will get the Backlash review within 24 hours after the pay-per-view airs. That means you guys are going to get my first thoughts of the show after it airs, and you'll get it before everybody else hears my thoughts on the pay-per-view. So why not join up? Patreon.com/That Wrestling Show. Alright, now to plug podcasts and friends of the show. As always, start off with our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast with Joe Murata and Michael Quinn. This week, they have a very interesting topic. Are there any watchable Kevin Nash matches? Will they be able to change your mind? We'll have to see. Plus, week 1 of the Royal Flush of the worst world title changes. And they review an episode of Memphis Wrestling from June 1979, which features one of the most famous brawls of all time. That is this week on our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast. Also, check out Greetings from Allentown with Peter Winston. He watches one episode of wrestling in his own unique way. And this week, probably should deserve the Congressional Medal of Honor for this, because he reviewed an episode of UWF, Herb Abrams' UWF, Fury Hour from 1991. Like I said, he probably deserves the Congressional Medal of Honor just for reviewing that episode alone. That is on Greetings from Allentown. And check out Juice Pro Wrestling, where this week they interview Canadian independent wrestler Ava Lawless. They talk about Return of the Living Dead and other horror titles, meeting Danzig and Henry Rollins, and so much more. That is this week on Juice Pro Wrestling. Now, if you're looking for non-wrestling related podcasts, check out the Best Pick Movie Podcast with Tom, John, and Jess. They watch each and every Academy Award-winning Best Picture winner in no particular order. This week, however, is a very special episode because it is a best of the best. They managed to get some special guests, and they talked about the big 5 categories and which movie would they give, or which actor would they pick from all the Best Picture winners. And I'll tell you this, I was at the live recording of this about 2 weeks ago, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun to listen to. Check it out on the Best Pick Movie Pod. Also, check out Last Stop Penn Station with Carrie Silken and Ian Riccaboni. This week, the episode is entitled Spend Time Now. This is going to be kind of an emotional episode, so if you got tissues near you, you might want to bring them with you when you listen to this episode. Also, check out the Castle Vault, where two guys watch each and every Disney animated film that is currently up on Disney+. This week, they discuss Finding Dory. That is this week on the Castle Vault. There's also Dave and Ethan's 2,000-inch Weird Al podcast, where this week they share memories and reminisce about the past 2 years of the podcast, and they have a lot of fun doing this one. That is this week on Dave and Ethan's 2,000-inch Weird Al podcast. Also, check out Bill Learns Kingdom Hearts. It is a new podcast where myself and Jim Boy Star, we discuss the Kingdom Hearts video game, and I give my thoughts on the videos that I watch during the game. This week's episode is Abandoned Ship. And finally, Sharks Pond, a South Park podcast where I watch and review each and every South Park episode. This week, I review the Season 12 episode, Brittany's New Look. That is this week on Sharks Pond, a South Park podcast. Alright, next time on the show, going to review Backlash, going to go into some wrestling news, and a whole lot more. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode. Hope everybody has a good, safe weekend, and come back here next time for another episode of That Wrestling Show, the podcast where all pro wrestling matters. And as always, wrestle on.